Why are you doing this to me? I did not do anything.
Sirens scream through the night. The heavy clang of iron doors shutting echoes in the air. Ruth, thin and trembling, is shoved forward by policemen. Chains rattle on her wrists. I didn't do it. Please believe me. I didn't kill him. Ruth screaming, voice breaking. The policemen ignore her cries, dragging her toward the waiting van. Journalists swarm around, cameras flashing, voices rising. That's the billionaire's maid, someone whispers. Accused of stabbing his driver. Such a pity, another mutters. So young, already a criminal. Her eyes dart wildly until they lock on the tall man across the street. He stands perfectly still, dressed in a black suit, his jaw clenched, his gaze heavy with fire. To the world, he looks composed. But deep inside, a storm rages. His lips move in a whisper only he can hear. I know you didn't do this, Ruth. I'll find the truth. I promise. The van door slams shut with a metallic thud. Ruth's tear-streaked face disappears behind the bars as the vehicle roars away. Roland doesn't move. He simply watches, his fists clenched, his silence more dangerous than words. The Lagos sun blazes mercilessly over traffic. Horns blare, conductors shout, engines roar. A young girl weaves between cars, a tray of sachet water wobbling on her head. Sweat drips down her face as she calls out weakly, "Pure water! Pure water! 100! Please buy!" Her slippers slap against the hot asphalt as she dodges bumpers. Then, out of nowhere, a sleek black SUV swerves dangerously close. She gasps. The tray flies. Sachets burst across the road, spilling their precious contents. Her chest heaves, then her eyes roll back. She collapses. The SUV screeches to a stop. The driver leaps out, panic-stricken. "Ah, madam. Madam, are you okay?" From the back seat, a door swings open. A deep, commanding voice cuts through the commotion. "What have you done? Pick her up. Now." They rush her into the car and speed away. Later, in a hospital bed, the girl stirs. Her eyes flutter open. The tall man in the navy suit towers over her, his expression unreadable yet strangely gentle. "You're awake. Relax. You're safe now." Confusion floods her gaze. Her lips quiver. My water, my tray." He pulls a thick bundle of cash from his pocket, placing it on the table beside her. "Forget the water. Take this. Buy more." Before she can reply, a sharp, shrill voice slices into the room. "Oh, my daughter. Thank God you're alive." A woman rushes in, snatching the money before the girl's fingers can touch it. Her smile is wide, fake, rehearsed. "Thank you, sir. God bless you. We appreciate it." The girl tries to whisper, "Mama, please." But the woman's grip tightens on her arm, her teeth clenched. "Keep quiet. Don't disgrace me here." Then, turning back with sugary sweetness, she bows again. "You've done enough, sir. Thank you." The girl is dragged out of the room. Just before disappearing through the door, her eyes lift helplessly toward the man who saved her. His gaze lingers, troubled. The very next day, under the unforgiving sun, she is back on the street. Her tray bounces on her head, her steps slow and heavy. Her stepmother's words from that morning sting in her ears. "No excuses. You think because a rich man gave us money you'll sit at home? Go and sell, useless girl." Her throat is dry. Her legs ache. Still, she pushes forward. At a traffic jam in Lekki, the black SUV crawls with the flow. In the back seat, the billionaire flips through documents, then glances up. His gaze hardens. The same girl. The same tray. The same struggle. He lowers his tinted glass slowly. "You. Come here." She freezes, unsure. Drivers behind honk angrily, urging her to move. Her feet drag her forward. "What's your name?" "Ruth." He studies her face, his eyes lingering, something stirring inside him that he can't explain. He leans back and speaks to his driver. Find her guardian. I want a word with them. That night, in Ruth's home, the stepmother's eyes sparkle when money is placed on the table. Live-in maid? Ah, she will serve you well, sir. Very obedient girl. Very hard-working. You won't regret it. Ruth's chest tightens, but her lips remain sealed. She has no choice. She is packed off to the billionaire's mansion. The first glimpse of the estate steals her breath. Cars gleam in the compound, fountains sparkle under lights, guards patrol in silence. She stands frozen at the gate, clutching her small nylon bag with trembling hands. Her heart whispers, "What kind of place is this? What will happen to me here?" Behind her, the gates clang shut. The sound echoes like a prison door. She is trapped now, inside a world she does not understand, with dangers she cannot yet see. "Welcome to your new home," Roland said as they got out of the car. A woman in a crisp uniform came out to meet them. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Ruth, this is Mrs. Henderson. She manages the household staff." Mrs. Henderson looked Ruth up and down, but not in a mean way. More like she was trying to figure out what Ruth needed. "Hello, dear. Don't look so frightened. We'll take good care of you here." "Thank you, ma'am," Ruth whispered. "First things first, you need a proper bath and some clean clothes. Then we'll show you around and explain your duties." The bathroom Mrs. Henderson led her to was bigger than the entire room Ruth had shared with 3 other girls at Clara's compound. The bathtub was huge and white, with golden taps that gleamed like jewelry. "Take as long as you need," Mrs. Henderson said, laying out towels and soap that smelled like flowers. "There's shampoo for your hair, and I've put some clean clothes on the bed for you." When Ruth lowered herself into the warm water, she almost cried. She couldn't remember the last time she had taken a proper bath with soap and hot water. At Clara's compound, they washed with cold water from a bucket, and soap was a luxury they could rarely afford. The clothes Mrs. Henderson had left were simple but clean: a blue dress that fit perfectly, underwear that was actually new, and shoes that didn't have holes in them. When Ruth looked at herself in the mirror, she hardly recognized the girl looking back at her. "Much better," Mrs. Henderson said with approval when Ruth emerged. "Now, let me show you around and explain what your duties will be." The house was enormous. There was a living room with furniture that looked too expensive to sit on, a dining room with a table that could seat 12 people, a kitchen that was bigger than most people's entire homes, and more bedrooms than Ruth could count. "Your room is here," Mrs. Henderson said, opening a door on the ground floor. "It's small, but it's yours alone." Ruth stepped inside and gasped. The room had a real bed with a mattress and pillows, a small wardrobe for clothes, a desk with a lamp, and a window that looked out onto the garden. It was the most beautiful room she had ever seen. "This is all mine," she whispered. "All yours. You can decorate it however you like." Ruth sat on the bed, feeling the soft mattress beneath her. She had never had her own room before, had never slept in a real bed with clean sheets and pillows. "Your duties will be simple," Mrs. Henderson continued. "Help keep the main rooms clean, serve meals when Mr. Maxwell has guests, and assist the other staff with whatever they need. The work isn't hard, but it must be done properly." "Yes, ma'am. I'll work very hard, I promise." Mrs. Henderson smiled. "I'm sure you will. Now, there are a few rules you need to know about. Mr. Maxwell values privacy above all else. You never discuss his business with anyone outside this house. You never repeat conversations you might overhear. And you treat all guests with respect, no matter who they are." "Yes, ma'am. There's one more thing." Mrs. Henderson's voice became more serious. "Mr. Maxwell has a lady friend who visits often. Miss Sandra. She can be demanding. Just do your best to stay out of her way and don't take anything she says personally." Ruth nodded, though she didn't really understand what Mrs. Henderson meant. For the first few weeks, life in the Maxwell house was like paradise. Ruth woke up every morning in her own bed, ate 3 proper meals a day, and did work that, while tiring, was nothing compared to carrying water in traffic all day. The other staff members were kind to her. There was James, the gardener, who always had a smile and a joke ready. There was Cook, whose real name was Mrs. Adebayo, which made Ruth laugh because they shared a surname, who made sure Ruth always had enough to eat. And there was Jamal, Mr. Maxwell's driver, who treated Ruth like a little sister and often brought her small gifts from his trips around the city. "You're settling in well," Mrs. Henderson told her after Ruth had been there for 3 weeks. "Mr. Maxwell has noticed how hard you work." Ruth felt her cheeks warm with pride. She had been trying her best to prove herself worthy of this opportunity. Her admission to a nearby university processing was done smoothly due to Maxwell connections. But paradise, Ruth was about to learn, could have its own kind of danger. Sandra James was the kind of beautiful that stopped conversations when she walked into a room. She was tall and slim, with perfect skin and hair that always looked like she had just stepped out of a salon. Her clothes were the type Ruth had only seen in magazines: expensive dresses, handbags that cost more than most people made in a year, shoes that looked like works of art. The first time Ruth saw her, Sandra was standing in the living room, checking her reflection in the huge mirror above the fireplace. She turned when Ruth entered with a tray of drinks, and for a moment, their eyes met. Sandra's gaze traveled from Ruth's face down to her simple uniform and back up again. There was something in her expression that made Ruth's skin crawl, not quite disgust, but something colder. Calculation. "You must be the new girl," Sandra said, her voice sweet as honey but somehow threatening at the same time. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Ruth." "Ruth." Sandra repeated the name like she was tasting something unpleasant. "How quaint. Where did Roland find you?" "He helped me after an accident, ma'am." Sandra's smile was sharp as a knife. "How fortunate for you. I hope you understand how lucky you are." "Yes, ma'am. Very lucky." "Good. Because girls who forget their place in this house tend to find themselves back on the streets very quickly." Ruth felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her voice respectful. "I'm just here to work, ma'am. Nothing else." "Of course you are." Sandra's laugh was like breaking glass. "Just remember, I've been part of this family for 3 years. I know where everything belongs. And everyone." From that day forward, Sandra seemed to take special pleasure in making Ruth's life difficult. She would accidentally spill drinks that Ruth would have to clean up. She would move things around and then complain that Ruth wasn't doing her job properly. She would make requests at all hours of the day and night, then criticize Ruth for being too slow or too clumsy. "Sandra seems to have taken a dislike to you," Mrs. Henderson observed one day after Sandra had screamed at Ruth for 20 minutes because the water in her bath wasn't the right temperature. "I don't know why, ma'am. I try to stay out of her way." Mrs. Henderson sighed. "Some people feel threatened by others, even when there's no reason to be. Just keep doing your job and ignore her as much as you can." But ignoring Sandra was becoming impossible. She seemed to be at the house more and more often, and she always found reasons to criticize Ruth in front of Mr. Maxwell. "Roland, I really think you should reconsider keeping that girl," Ruth overheard Sandra saying one evening as she served dinner. "She's so rough around the edges. Not the type of staff that reflects well on a man in your position." "Ruth is doing fine work," Mr. Maxwell replied calmly. "Mrs. Henderson has nothing but good things to say about her." "Mrs. Henderson is too soft-hearted. I've caught that girl staring at you several times. It's inappropriate." Ruth felt her face burn with embarrassment. She had never stared at Mr. Maxwell inappropriately. She barely looked at him at all, except when he was speaking directly to her. "I think you're imagining things, Sandra." "Am I?" "I know girls like her, Roland. They come from nothing, and they think they can use their sob stories to climb the social ladder. You need to be more careful." Ruth finished serving the meal and retreated to the kitchen, her hands shaking with anger and humiliation. She had never tried to use her situation to gain anything beyond the opportunity to work and earn an honest living. But Sandra's campaign against her was just beginning. One evening, Mr. Maxwell called out to Jamal from his study. Jamal. I need that envelope from the car. The blue one in the glove compartment. Jamal, who had been cleaning his car in the garage, hurried to comply. Ruth was in the kitchen, helping cook prepare dinner for the next day, when they heard Mr. Maxwell's voice again, this time irritated. Jamal. I said the blue envelope, not the shopping bags. Through the kitchen window, Ruth could see Jamal looking confused, holding what appeared to be several expensive shopping bags with Sandra's name on them. Sorry, sir. I thought you meant. Just bring me the envelope I asked for. As Jamal hurried back to the car, Sandra appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her face was flushed, and her eyes were bright with anger. That stupid man, she hissed, pacing back and forth. Does he think this is a joke? Cook looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. Is everything all right, Miss Sandra? Everything is not all right. That driver of yours just displayed my personal shopping for the whole world to see. Ruth didn't understand why Sandra was so upset about shopping bags, but she could see that the woman was working herself into a rage. I'm sure it was just a mistake, Cook said gently. Jamal is a good man. He would never. Good man. He's an incompetent fool. Sandra grabbed one of the kitchen knives from the counter, waving it around as she ranted. Do you know how much I spent today? Do you know what Roland will say when he finds out? At that moment, Jamal walked back through the kitchen, carrying a blue envelope. Miss Sandra, I'm very sorry about the confusion. Sorry. Sorry isn't good enough. What happened next felt like slow motion. Sandra's arm swung forward, the knife still in her hand. Whether she meant to throw it or was just gesturing wildly, Ruth would never know. But the blade left Sandra's grip, spinning through the air, and struck Jamal in the side of his neck. Jamal's eyes went wide with shock. His hands flew to his throat, and bright red blood began seeping between his fingers. He staggered backward, hit the wall, and slid down to the floor. Oh God, Cook whispered, dropping her own knife. Oh God, oh God. Sandra stood frozen, staring at what she had done. For a moment, the kitchen was completely silent except for the sound of Jamal's labored breathing. Then Sandra seemed to snap back to reality. But instead of calling for help, instead of trying to stop the bleeding, she looked around the kitchen with wild, calculating eyes. We have to fix this, she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. Fix this. Cook's voice was shrill with panic. We need to call an ambulance. We need to. No. Sandra's voice was sharp. No ambulances. No doctors. No police. Ruth knelt beside Jamal, pressing her hands against the wound in his neck, trying to stop the bleeding. But there was so much blood, and it kept coming. Please, Jamal whispered, his voice weak. Help me. I'm trying, Ruth said, tears streaming down her face. I'm trying, Uncle Jamal. Stay with me. But even as she spoke, she could see the light fading from his eyes. Sandra stood over them, her face twisted with panic and something else, something cold and calculating. This is your fault, she said suddenly, pointing at Ruth. You distracted me. You made me angry. What? Ruth looked up at her in shock. I didn't do anything. You were standing there, judging me, making me nervous. If you hadn't been in the kitchen, I was helping cook. I was just... Shut up. Sandra screamed. Shut up and let me think. Cook had backed into a corner, her hands pressed against her mouth in horror. She was staring at Jamal's still body, at the blood spreading across the white kitchen tiles. We need to call Mr. Maxwell, Cook said weakly. We need to tell him what happened. Tell him what? That I killed his driver in a fit of rage. Sandra's laugh was high and hysterical. Do you think he'll understand? Do you think he'll forgive me? It was an accident, Ruth said, still kneeling beside Jamal. You didn't mean to. Accident or not, he's dead. Sandra's voice had become eerily calm. And I'm not going to prison for this. What she did next would haunt Ruth for the rest of her life. Sandra grabbed Jamal's body under the arms and began dragging him across the floor, leaving a trail of blood behind. Cook screamed and ran from the kitchen, but Sandra held her back, locked her into the store, and said if she makes any noise or comes out, she's fired. She came out and met Ruth in the kitchen, still jiltering over Jamal's lifeless body. "Help me," Sandra ordered Ruth. "I won't help you move him. We need to call the police. If you don't help me, I'll tell them you did it." Who do you think they'll believe, a rich woman or a street girl with a criminal background? "I don't have a criminal background. You will after tonight." With strength born of desperation, Sandra managed to drag Jamal's body down the hallway toward the servants' quarters. She kicked open the door to Ruth's room and positioned the body on the floor. Then she went back to the kitchen, got the knife, and asked Ruth to hold it. She hesitated but took another knife to threaten her. She reluctantly held it, and she led her to the quarters where she laid Jamal's body. "There," she said, breathing heavily. "Perfect. Stand there." "You can't do this," Ruth whispered. "This is insane." "What's insane is thinking I'm going to let my life be ruined by one moment of carelessness." Sandra grabbed Ruth's arm roughly. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to scream for help. You're going to act shocked and horrified. And when people ask what happened, you're going to say you don't know. It's a mistake. I won't lie for you." Sandra's grip tightened. "Yes, you will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. And we both know what happens to pretty young girls in Nigerian prisons, don't we?" Ruth felt sick to her stomach. She thought of all the stories she had heard about what happened to people who crossed the wealthy and powerful in Nigeria. Justice was for those who could afford it, and she definitely could not. "Now scream," Sandra commanded. When Ruth hesitated, Sandra slapped her hard across the face. "Scream." Ruth's scream of pain and terror echoed through the house, bringing footsteps running from every direction. "What happened? What's wrong?" Mrs. Henderson's voice called out. "In here." Sandra shouted back, her own voice perfectly pitched with shock and horror. "Something terrible has happened." Let me know your thoughts about this story in the comments section. Subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you.